I think a blanket ban is disproportionate. There are issues to be addressed. What I want to see is a level playing field between, obviously, the private hire and as I say, the national institution that is the wonderful London taxi cabs.
But what if the licensing powers, which they do, give Transport for London the powers to look at this company? They've found that there are questions to answer, and they've decided they can't do that other than by a blanket ban. What do you mean by a blanket ban? You can't have a partial one, can you?
At a stroke of a pen, what has happened is 40,000 jobs have been put at risk, and we know there are something like 3.5 million Uber users in London, and they will see, potentially see a change. Yes, there are questions to be answered, but I think a blanket ban is disproportionate. I think what we want to see is a level playing field between the taxi cabs and the private hire vehicles.
It sounds to me that you might not be, or you don't have any concerns about Uber, or if you do, would you not be prepared in any way to intervene?
Well, you say, do I have concerns about Uber? I have said consistently that I think there are questions for them to answer, there are safety issues for them to answer, but what I think people want to see is choice, and what I think we want to see is a level playing field between the taxi cabs and the private hire vehicles.
Which you've said and been very clear on. Obviously, it is the Mayor's responsibility to deal with the licensing thing. Government are given him powers there. Do you not have any view about their tax status? They don't pay VAT on fares income. They pay very little in corporation tax. Isn't that something you could do something about?
Well, look, you've raised a wider issue about the question of businesses and ensuring that we do see businesses paying taxes and so forth. And that's something that this Conservative government has done more on than previous Labour governments. And we are very clear about that. What we want to see in relation to businesses is, yes, them taking their responsibilities, recognising their responsibilities to their communities.
Can I just turn to another matter, Grenfell Tower? Jeremy Corbyn in his conference speech talking about the tower being a tragic monument to the Tories' degraded regime, a hollowing out of public services, a disdain for the powerless and the poor. How far do you go along with that then? Yeah.
This was a terrible tragedy, and obviously, people have seen their lives shattered as a result of what happened at Grenfell. What I want to see, first of all, we've got to get to the bottom of the truth of what happened. That's why within days I'd set up a public inquiry, and that is now obviously in place and working. What we also need to do is ensure that we don't see situations, as we saw at Grenfell and elsewhere in London, that we've seen from Labour councils in London elsewhere, that the voice of tenants is not heard when they put in complaints and concerns about safety. That's why the Housing Minister is going around the country listening to social housing tenants. We want to listen to them. We want to ensure that in future, when they raise their voice is heard.
Do you feel that this could hover or linger over your time as Prime Minister, both as a policy failure or a personal failure?
No. This was a terrible tragedy. People's lives have been shattered as a result. We need to get to the truth. That's why within days I had set up the public inquiry, which is now in operation. But we also need to look at the wider issues of social housing. That's why I've asked the Housing Minister to go around the country listening to tenants. And we need to ask the question, why have social housing tenants raised their voice in the past and not had it heard, not being acted on by councils of all sorts? When social housing tenants raise their voice, it needs to be listened to.
Prime Minister, thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.